everyone, welcome to Amphlett Reviews, back with another Hong Kong content review, doing an extra special video. We're doing a triple bill review for the month of October, for Halloween, spooky month, horror, dread-filled content. Yes, I love Halloween, I love horror-based kind of movies. Been blasting through a lot of horror movies recently, kind of, non-Hong Kong based and foreign based, and just been having a real blast watching a lot of these kind of films again. These films I really do enjoy watching. It's a unique kind of experience you get with a horror film, and I had to think there had to be some really cool ones within the Hong Kong genre that I've yet to check out, yet to see. And I've talked about a few here and there on the channel, a few odd ones I've liked, ones I didn't like, and I figured let's go for the collection, let's see what I've picked up over the years, and let's see which ones I can do in a really cool video and to discuss with you guys, and hopefully these ones are winners. And I managed to find 3 specific ones for all their connections and their kind of history, how they link together. All 3 of these films are from Shaw Brothers, all from the same director, Kuei Chin-Hung, which is becoming one of my favourite directors now after watching all 3 of these films. And he did, surprisingly, one of my favourite Shaw Brothers films ever, Killer Constable. This is all-time favourite Shaw Brothers film, definitely up there in the top 10, or whatever you want to say. This film blew me away, and I absolutely love this film. Something that I quote and kind of think about still, even after watching it so long ago. Love Killer Constable, and surprisingly, he lent into the world of kind of horror movies, and he's known for the kind of the horror genre within Shaw Brothers. And I'm going to be talking about today, as you already can tell from the poster, is going to be Bewitched Hex, and I'm also going to be talking about the box's Omen from the Arrow Volume 2 box set. So we've got 2 88 film editions, and we've got 1 film from the Shaw Brothers Volume 2 Arrow box set edition. All 3 of these films are made very closely together, 1998 to 1991, 1983. So all 3 of these films have a very kind of close connected history, and these are really interesting kind of horror films. These are not ones that I expect. So without further ado, let's dive into the mad world of Kuei Chin-Hung's kind of horror-based trilogy. Let's go for it. So let's start with Box's Omen, the best one out of the kind of the 3. Now, I did watch this in kind of, in the wrong order. I did watch it from Box's Omen, then I watched Bewitched, and I watched Hex last. I should have watched it in reverse order. However, I'm glad I did watch it in that order, because it's nice to start fresh with the best one, leading into sort of the kind of lesser tier ones, but still pretty goddamn good overall. Box's Omen is part of the kind of the Shaw Brothers Volume 2 box set. It's got a brand new fantastic scan on that edition, and that's a really brilliant extra which talks about the kind of director's kind of history, his background, and who he was at Shaw Brothers, why he made these films the way he did, and his ultimate end with liver cancer during his kind of late 60s. And it's a very fascinating director. As mentioned, I've only watched Killer Constable, which I absolutely love. That was complete and utter surprise. I wasn't expecting a film to be that well made, that well told, and something that still stick around, and it's in my mind still doing to this day. And if you know the channel, if you know myself, I like great characters, I like great story, kind of expression kind of thing. And you can tell this director, after watching all 3 of these films, even with Killer Constable, that he really cares about these projects, and he's really given them more, whether he agrees with the scripts, whether he agrees with the projects he's been given to, kind of thing. You can tell he's making the best of what he has, and he's taking full advantage of all the resources, the actors, and he's really just going for it. He directs the shit out of all 3 of these films, and he does a really fantastic job of using the camera, using cinematography, and Box's Omen is no exception for that. This film, I'm going to say it straight away, is fucking awesome. This film was released in 1993, and this film is the peak of kind of that kind of genre. Shaw Brothers were kind of leading into kind of the more spooky kind of horror-based kind of movies with, like Killer Snakes, which also the director did do. Kind of Category B was quite popular at the time during the kind of the early 80s, and it makes sense that Shaw Brothers want to capitalize on that kind of horror base and doing black magic, good versus evil, sorcery, visual effects, special effects, kind of gross type kind of content. Evil Dead was kind of big, obviously, with was during the West kind of thing. So it makes sense that Shaw Brothers want to capitalize on that kind of growing market of the horror market and do these kind of really crazy out there kind of, you know, grotesque kind of movies. And despite what you think of the content inside these films, in terms of if you agree with, you know, like slight animal cruelty kind of thing, you know, eating kind of disgusting kind of, you know, food, and, you know, maggots and all sorts of kind of gross out kind of stuff. There's a lot of gross kind of elements to these films. This is unbelievably creative from start to finish, and Boxer's Omen is a thrill ride from start to finish. It's nearly a 2-hour movie, and it does not stop. And the good thing about this movie compared to some of the other ones that I have seen, and, you know, I've made some examples with like Black Magic, which I didn't particularly like. I thought that was a little too sleazy, a little too simple, didn't really go anywhere for me personally. However, Human Lanterns was a huge surprise, because the concept was, even though a horror-based slasher, it had such a unique kind of you know, take on that idea, but also had a bigger story around it. And this film does the exact same thing. You've got great characters that you're invested in. You've got a character which is a boxer himself, someone who's a little bit of a criminal. He's got a bit of a criminal kind of past, and he is summoned by this mysterious figure, you know, this monk, and he's like being drawn to him, and he doesn't know why. He keeps getting these kind of really interesting kind of signs and kind of, you know, hallucinations, and he goes to kind of, you know, the temple, this Buddhist temple, and he basically is summoned, and he has a destiny and a basically a fate to take on this basically this demon, and he has to become a monk, and he has to do the training. And it's really much an interesting kind of explorative kind of nature of the world of kind of being, you know, a monk and being a Buddhist, and it, you know, really takes pride and takes time to really dive into the culture and the routines of that, while still being a kind of fun entertainment kind of, you know, trashy type of movie in a sense. But the thing about it that it's impressive with this film and the other two films as well, is that he really takes some time and really builds up this world building kind of element to these films. He takes these films seriously, but also he allows to have fun at the same time. He establishes the rules, he establishes the stakes and what you can't do, what you can do, and he really builds up these characters and these kind of, you know, moments that really become so fascinating that you can't take your eyes to watch. I was really intrigued and really kind of thrown into this kind of world of kind of good versus evil, and the ideas of the different practices of, you know, Buddhist kind of rituals, and how someone becomes a monk, and versus the evil side, the demon side, where their kind of rituals and how they make things. And it has the kind of the very charming, very schlocky kind of, you know, puppetry and kind of very obviously wire work, and, you know, it's kind of just adorable, but also just wonderful at the same time. You got, you know, animatronic kind of bats and, like, you know, spiders, and, you know, you've got some old tricks in the book kind of, but it's so creative, it's so fun that you can forgive, but you just don't care. You're so lost in that world. You're so wondered by how the hell he made this film put together, and how he managed to do so much with his budget. This film feels like his magnum opus. After watching his other two films in kind of reverse order, and especially watching some of the other kind of, you know, Shaw Brothers kind of Black Magic kind of, you know, horror-based content, this was one of the last ones and one of the greatest ones. And doing a bit of research into it as well, this film is really well known, really high regarded as being the best one out of that kind of genre. And you can tell, because this film delivers everything. It gives you everything. And the best thing about it, it does not waste your time as well. You've got a character that you actually like and care about. His journey is interesting. His world into this kind of, you know, good versus evil kind of, you know, battle is fantastic. You know, you've got the rival kind of evil sorcerers as well. That's kind of resurrecting like a body, like a woman, female kind of, you know, zombie kind of thing that has powers. And, you know, his journey from start to finish is fantastic, while having a side story with him kind of facing off a kind of boxer, which is the villain from the Van Damme movies, which is quite funny. The best way to describe this film is kind of like Shazam meets Evil Dead. You know, it's the idea of, you know, within Shazam, you know, Billy's character is someone who's just living an ordinary day life, and he's kind of thrown into this world, and he's told he's the next Shazam superhero in that world, and he has to kind of take on the trials and errors of being someone like that. Similar to this character, you know, Mr. Chang, he's someone who has to become a monk. He has to rid of his kind of purification. You know, there's no sex, no violence, no drinking, and he has to become pure with the world of Buddhist and have that power. And he has to find something later on, like kind of a relic, to increase his power, to gain power against evil that's kind of taking him on, trying to, you know, to defeat him and kill him. And it's brilliant. It's a brilliant throw ride from start to finish. It has a really gorgeous locations. I like the fact as well that I noticed that all three of his films, he introduces location. And that's very interesting to me. That's one of the things I really do appreciate. The fact he's keeping the audience kind of thing on the same frame, right? He's taking the journey, he's taking the audience on this journey, but not holding your hand, but telling you, hey, this is the location, this is the world we're in now, this is where we're in terms of overall. Boxer's Omen is an absolute fantastic horror throw ride from start to finish. It offers great characters, it offers a great rich kind of, you know, world building kind of mythology and a world kind of, you know, of good versus evil, with Buddhist kind of monks versus evil demon sorceries. You've got an impelling kind of rich kind of, you know, world that takes this character on. Excellent cinematography, excellent music score, kind of gross out practical effects and visual effects. It takes its time, it really kind of, you know, guide you into this world, and it's a full ride from start to finish. It's a really fun ride, and I have an absolute blast. This is the final kind of magnum opus of kind of Shaw Brothers kind of horror-based kind of content. They had a very small run for a couple of years, and this is definitely probably the best one, if not the best one, out of that genre. Absolutely recommend checking out Boxer's Omen. It is on the fantastic Shaw Brothers Volume 2 Boxer, with a brand new transfer, and has some really good extras as well go behind it. That's recommended. Next up on my viewing list, we have Bewitched, released in 1991. This actually is a first entry, as technically Boxer's Omen is a sequel to this film. However, you don't really need to watch that. You can just watch it by itself if you really wanted to. However, if you did want to do a double bill, this and Boxer's Omen is pretty goddamn good. It's pretty solid. This film obviously came before it, and this kind of leads up to the ideas that happen within Boxer's Omen. Bewitched is pretty goddamn fun. It's definitely a bit more cheaper, a bit more sleazier. However, the ideas, the kind of the world building is all there, and all connects really well to that of a previous kind of film. The story of Bewitched is actually quite simple. A guy from Hong Kong goes to Thailand to basically, you know, have a bit of fun and kind of enjoy a holiday, and you get away from work and his daughter, and he kind of messes around with this kind of woman, and she falls in love with him, but he doesn't reciprocate that. He just kind of, he sees it as a bit of kind of a fling, a bit of a kind of a summer fun type thing, and she places a very presumptuous curse on this guy. If he doesn't come back on a certain time, a certain date, basically he is cursed to basically, you know, essentially, you know, have hallucinations. His daughter tries to kill him, and he has specific kind of things that happen to me as a very slow, painful death as a result of not coming back and honouring their kind of brief kind of love. Yeah, the woman's got some problems. The fact that she kind of placed the curse immediately before he even left, that's pretty hardcore. But yeah, we'll get to that. And basically he comes back home, and obviously things start to happen. He is, the start of the film, he has basically killed his daughter. He's put like a 6-inch nail in the back of her skull because she is basically acting out. You know, one of the parts of the curse is like loved ones will start to kill him as well, try to kill him, and he's paranoid, and he is getting like, you know, hairs on his chest, and he's starting to kind of you know, go crazy during the full moons kind of thing. And basically the body of the girl is found, and he is kind of sentenced, and he tells the story to a cop. He tells the story to a police officer about what happened. And one of the things about this film straight away is that, again, as mentioned within Boxer's Omen, that he directs the shit out of these films. He does a really, really good job of having good location. He really kind of explores, you know, different types of kind of, you know, not just the same sets over and over like we see in a lot of Shaw Brothers films, but really kind of taking the film outside, daylight, really great location scouting, you know, really takes the time to establish where you are in terms of the film, in terms of, you know, geography, and plays with the camera, really kind of makes it a part of the scenes and make it intense and make it, you know, have interesting close-ups. He has a really good attention to detail of how he wants the audience to feel and how he wants you to focus on, and he really kind of establishes a believability and a practicality to this world. Even though it's crazy kind of sorcery, kind of black magic type stuff, it's completely out there bonkers, but he takes it seriously, so we as an audience member are invested, and he doesn't make it a joke. Even though some of the kind of the gross out kind of stuff is kind of funny, it's not, you know, in funny in detriment to the film, but also just because of how crazy it's going, how you know over the top, you know, especially when the kind of the monk and the sorcery in this film like sweating kind of water. It's pretty crazy, but it's a lot of fun. It's really a lot of fun to watch, and again, great cinematography, great use of camera, scoring is very appropriate. You know, it's quiet when it needs to be quiet, it's loud and kind of really in there when it needs to be intense. And as I mentioned, he comes back, he's sentenced to kind of the loony bin kind of thing because he basically is going crazy, and the cop goes on a kind of explorative personal journey to find out if these kind of black magic curses are real and to kind of help to stop it. And obviously it doesn't lead very well because he basically goes to Thailand. He has some connections down to his wife, and he basically gets into this world of kind of, you know, black magic and sorcery. And, you know, the film, interesting enough though, introduces every single kind of spell and the rules of these spells very clearly. And I think the idea is, from the opening and the end of the film, this is a cautionary tale about be careful who you mess with, be careful who you sleep with, and you might end up kind of regretting it by the end, essentially. Every time a spell is used by the sorcery, it kind of introduces it and kind of how it's made, how it's put together. And it's not trying to tell you how to make these spells or how to do them, it's just trying to show you these spells actually do sort of exist and people do use them. Whether they work or whether you believe them is entirely up to you. But has the resources and help from a monk, which is known for this kind of thing. So he's known for his kind of services, and he basically says, I can help your friend, and I can do this kind of, you know, anti-reversing kind of spell that can take on the sorcery. And obviously they both have this really interesting kind of sequence that goes on for quite some time, but it's really fantastic. And it is the same monk from Boxer's Omen, which is quite interesting. It acts as a sort of a first entry leading up to kind of Boxer's Omen, which is fantastic. So you see his kind of attempts and his kind of to remove the nails from this picture, the different stages that happen. It kind of shows you the rules and kind of how each one is trying to counteract each other. And, you know, he's really trying hard to kind of remove these kind of nails from the picture and to lift the curse, while the black magic guy is doing these really kind of crazy stuff, you know, drinking kind of blood and, you know, really kind of enhancing his abilities. And they're both kind of equal matching against each other. You know, they can't defeat each other. Very intense scene about the practices and how each one is trying to kind of outmatch each other and trying to do little tricks and turns kind of thing. And it's really fun, it's really fantastic, and it's really intense as well. And a lot of good practical effects and kind of, you know, crazy stuff. You know, the hand with the nail going through the hand, brilliant. You know, him, you know, sweating kind of water, which is really funny. Just a really fun, creative kind of, you know, intense moment. A good portion of the film where it needs to kick up a notch. Kind of, the cop goes back up to Hong Kong, and the kind of the sorcery guy basically follows him, the cop, back to Hong Kong, and basically tries to mess with him and tries to kill him directly, because he's the one kind of, you know, trying to lift the curse and has personal stakes. And, you know, it goes a bit crazy and a bit kind of bonkers from that point onwards. It's comes a much more of a personal kind of journey, and the ending of the film ends with a really glorious sequence that actually leads into Boxer's Omen, as previously mentioned. Overall, Bewitched is not a perfect film by any means. It's a little sleazy, it's a little slow in places. However, it takes its time to really establish these characters, establish this world. Great location, great cinematography, as mentioned. It really kind of pays off with some of the cool black magic kind of, you know, Buddhist kind of, you know, monk versus kind of sorcery kind of magic, and the practical effects and the kind of visual effect kind of nature that goes into that. This feels like a really good precursor to what later to come with, obviously, with Boxer's Omen, but it does work as a film by itself. You can watch this film, really enjoy it, and really get invested in the characters in this world. I think it's an hour and 45 minutes, so it does take its time in places, but it doesn't become boring, it doesn't become slow or sluggish. However, it is a little cheesy, the dialogue isn't always the best. However, it gives you what you want as an audience member. It gives you that really fun kind of, you know, horror-based kind of content, gross out kind of content, and it really goes for it yet again. And it ends on a really fantastic kind of, you know, sequence at the airport, which leads really well into the next entry. This film was fun. I really enjoyed it. It's nowhere near as good as the previous one that I've watched, but I really did enjoy this one, and I really appreciate the efforts and the attention to detail this director is really trying to do, and giving the best performance, trying to do the best kind of what he has and the materials he has on screen. And this is a really fun ride from start to finish. And last but not least, we have this X, released in 1980. This is the first, this is the one that really kind of put him on the map and kind of really kind of paved the way of non-stop horror film content from Shaw Brothers at this point onwards. And this one's quite an interesting one. It's definitely the weakest out of the trilogy, but still pretty good overall kind of thing. I did actually quite enjoy this. I just think there's a few things they could have done a little better. Now, this film was a partial remake from Diabolic, an old French film from 1955. I've not actually seen that film, but actually definitely is on my list. It does have a Criterion version, and I think there's actually a remake of that as well in the 90s with Sharon Stone. They're definitely kind of a well-known kind of, you know, staple kind of horror, early horror face film about two women that basically try and get away with murder from this kind of very abusive kind of husband, this very abusive man. And the film basically takes that story for the first kind of 30 minutes, kind of 35 minutes of the film, and then turns into something else towards the kind of the middle act, and especially into the third act of the film, where it goes really, really crazy. This film is pretty well acted, it's really well done. Even though it is a lesser film compared to the other two, it doesn't have nowhere near as much kind of craziness in terms of the kind of the practical effects and the kind of horror-based kind of stuff. It's a much more simpler story. It feels more like a spooky kind of, you know, kind of campfire kind of tale. It feels like a moral story, yet again, similar to kind of Bewitched. And it features just really good performances. You know, this is an hour-and-a-half film, so it doesn't take too long overall. It's kind of not wasting your time too much. It does get a little bit dull in some places, sure, but it's really well acted. It's set within mainly one location, this house, and you get to know these characters really well. You've got the madam of the house who has lung infection, she's coughing, she has to take medicine, she's kind of bedridden. Her kind of family, kind of, you know, dynasty, this kind of Chang family is not as wealthy as it once was. You know, they've had better days, now they're kind of in poverty, and you've got this man, this very abusive kind of man, this master, who's forced, well, who's basically married into this family, and they can't divorce, they can't leave down to the time period they're in, and he basically hates her, resents her, and they have no servants, and when they do have servants, he's basically abusive, he's nasty to them, he kind of gets drunk, and he's just a very horrible person. And you know, the servants that do start the film leaves because of the abuse and the horrible nature this kind of master is doing. And this woman comes along, basically says, you know, I used to basically serve your house, and I want to pay back my debts, essentially. And you know, she gets invested in madam, and she basically is aware of kind of what master's kind of temper and what it's like, and you've got to form this kind of like this little bond connection, these two kind of women that basically are trying to help each other out, essentially. And they basically lead to murder of this master, this kind of woman, this very abusive husband, and they are paranoid, they're having hallucinations, and it comes very spooky and very kind of creepy. And if you don't know ultimately where the story goes, I don't want to say too much, but ultimately not everything is what it seems. The twists and turns that do happen within the kind of the middle act, and even in the third act, is quite clever. So there's quite there's a lot going on in this film. I don't want to review all of it, but spooky stuff starts to happen, weird things start to happen. It's nowhere near as kind of, you know, clever or well kind of, you know, structured, but when you know the twist and you know the reveals that lead up to the end of the film, all of it makes sense. I was thinking to myself, for a spooky kind of horror film, you know, for a ghost, you know, sure doing a lot of running in the film, sure doing a lot of really kind of presented kind of, you know, sequences, and I'm thinking to myself, like, is that really the best they can do? Is that kind of like they can't do anything kind of more interesting or more kind of, you know, trickery kind of thing to kind of make this kind of really go for it? But there's a reason for it, and every time I thought to myself, oh, they should have shown that scene, or they should have revealed that a little better, because there's a moment where they do a twist within the second act of the film. Again, I don't want to say too much, but I would have liked to have seen the scene that happened prior to that, and they do show it with the ending of the film. Very clever. And obviously the film was known for this kind of really over the top kind of sequence at the end, with this kind of woman having this kind of like, you know, scripture all over her body, and she does a really kind of crazy kind of dance to kind of ward off the kind of the spirits that are haunting this kind of, you know, this mansion. And that goes on for quite some time. It's fun for a bit, and it gets a little bit boring. 10 minutes of a woman basically nakedly dancing, or, you know, and casting out this kind of spirit from this house. It's pretty bonkers. But the twists and turns are great, the performances are great, location is really well utilised, great cinematography yet again. Again, despite the kind of the extra talking about on the Shubba's Volume 2 set, where he basically was handed scripts to say go off and make it, there wasn't much restriction for him to basically do. He wasn't one of the top tier kind of, you know, Hong Kong kind of directors for Shaw Brothers, so he didn't have access to the sets. However, when he did, he really utilised them. He really did take advantage of what he was given. And this film, even though it's more simpler compared to the other two, it does a really good job. Overall, my thoughts and opinions on X, it's a pretty decent kind of reinterpretation of the original French movie back from the 1950s. It obviously takes an idea from that and kind of spins it upon a different kind of, you know, route with the kind of black magic kind of sorcery type stuff, which is pretty awesome. Nice and simple, kind of, you know, spooky kind of horror, very ghost kind of filled. Great cinematography, great performances, great utilization of the sets and location, some great kind of reveals that do happen. It's a little bit kind of slow in place, it's a little bit kind of, you know, takes its time a little bit too much. Some of the more comedic elements, a little bit of a shame kind of it's kind of thrown in there, but it doesn't overstay its welcome too much. It does it, it plays with it, and then moves on. If I enjoyed X overall, I definitely would watch as part of a kind of like a trilogy or kind of movie. In terms of all three of these films, I would say definitely keep your expectations to a certain level. I think with Boxer's Omen, it definitely offers everything you want to see with that kind of mid-80s kind of, you know, horror-based kind of movie, where the other two movies don't have nowhere near as much compared to that film does. So I'd say keep your expectations in a certain level. Keep in mind all three of these films are quite sleazy. They are very trashy in a lot of parts, but I look forward to checking out more kind of spooky kind of Hong Kong based kind of content for you guys very soon. So please check out on the channel. There should be a few more on the channel very soon, guys. So what are your thoughts and impressions of these films, guys? Please comment down below. What is your favourite Hong Kong horror based kind of film, whether it's Shaw Brothers, whether it's category 3 based? I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions, guys. Which ones would you recommend me checking out, or I haven't covered on the channel already? Please comment down below. And guys, Amphlett Reviews, signing out.